Hello and welcome to this course on social media research with word association thematic analysis. And I'm Mike Thirlwell from the University of Wolverhampton. So this course is going to go through the word association thematic analysis method applied to social media data. Although it can be applied to other data, nearly all the examples from this course will come from social media data, in particular social media texts. So in this presentation, I'm going to give an overview of the method and talk through the core word association and thematic analysis tasks that you need to apply yourself manually in order to get the method to work. Okay, so at the end of this presentation, you should have a basic idea of what the method is and what you would have to do to form the interpretation part of the research study. So first of all, what is word association thematic analysis, or WATA for short? So it's a method to identify themes in sets of texts. So that's the bottom line. So you need a set of text, for example tweets or YouTube comments, and this method will produce or identify a set of themes in those texts. And for this you need a large set of text, so ideally 10,000 or more text. So the more, the better. The more text you have, the more fine-grained the themes you can find from them. You also need ideas for a comparison. So I'll illustrate some ideas for a comparison later on in the talk. And there are many different types of comparison you can make, and there are even some types of comparisons that aren't really comparisons, as we'll see a bit later on. And you also need to use the free software Mojday to make the comparisons. So you could write your own programs if you like, if you're a programmer, but Mojday will do this for you. And depending on what kind of text you're dealing with, Mojday might also collect the text. For example, it'll collect the tweets or the YouTube comments for your analysis if that's what you're dealing with. And the output of a study will be a set of themes related to the comparison, with each theme derived from a set of words identified from the comparison. So if you've applied the thematic analysis method, qualitative research method, thematic analysis in the past, this is a variation of that. It ends up with the same thing, a set of themes, but the process to get there is different. But it involves some of the same types of interpretations as you have to make in thematic analysis. If you haven't heard of thematic analysis before, then today you'll find out what it is. Okay, let's start with an example. So this is a thematic analysis from a study to investigate international differences in COVID-19 vaccination tweets. So this is going to be a WATA summary of themes in how UK vaccine tweets differ from 7 other countries' vaccine tweets. So when people in the UK tweeted about COVID-19 vaccines, what was different about their tweets compared to 7 other countries' tweets about vaccines in English? So one of the things was that in the UK people use more positive terms about vaccines than in the other countries. So words like fantastic, lovely, brilliant, pleased, well done, amazing, and concluding with kisses, X or XX, these were characteristic of the UK compared to the 7 other countries that were analysed. And 2 of the countries were the US and Ireland, 2 of the other countries. And in the US people were excited to get a vaccine, and in Ireland people were delighted to get a vaccine. But in the UK, there were, as you can see, there are a wide range of different terms expressed positivity about vaccines. So the UK seems to be unusually positive about vaccines, at least on Twitter, and at least at the time when the tweets were collected. Another UK-specific theme was about vaccine passports and tweets about whether they would be necessary for particular activities. UK tweets, more than the other countries, asked whether it was possible to ease the lockdown or when it would be possible to ease the lockdown. And another theme were tweets asking whether the test and trace system in the UK was an expensive failure. So all of these themes were derived from analysing the tweets of the UK compared to 7 other countries to look for words that were more common in the UK tweets than in the other countries' tweets, and then organising the words into themes. And the final one from the UK was vaccine hesitancy in the UK Black and minority ethnic community, the BAME community in the UK. So this again was distinctive of the UK compared to the 7 other countries. So the output of the study was a set of themes for the UK, and there are also themes for the other countries investigated at the same time. So a large set of themes, one set for each country. Okay, so you'll see lots of other examples of word association thematic analysis applied to sets of texts, but that was the first one. So the first requirement is a large set of texts, as I mentioned earlier. So these texts can be from pretty much any source that I can think of where the texts aren't formatted, so plain text. And examples include tweets. And if you're a Twitter researcher, then I hope you know that you can get large amounts of free Twitter data now from the Academic Research Twitter source that opened in January 2021. You can also analyze YouTube comments, not the videos themselves, but the comments posted to the videos. These might be the text in your source. Or other things that have been analyzed include reviews from TripAdvisor, posts from Reddit. A non-social media source is the titles, abstracts and keywords of academic papers. So some studies have used those, or reviews of academic papers, for example. So these are all different types of text. But if you collected already your text from some other source, maybe emails or discussion group posts, or I don't know, WhatsApp messages, if you got your hands on a large set of text from any source, then there's a good chance that you can apply WATA to your texts. So Mosday can collect the tweets or the YouTube comments, and for the other things it can import them so long as they're in a fairly simple format. So Mosday either collects the tweets directly over the internet, or it imports them from your copy of the texts, as long as you can change the format of your text into a simple format, or unless they're already in a simple format. So 10,000 text is the suggested minimum. So the more text you have, the finer grained themes you get and the deeper insights you can hope for from your texts. And also if you've got more focused text or longer text, then that also gives finer grained themes and deeper insights. So the more text you have, the more focused the texts are, so the fewer topics they cover, in that sense, then the better results you get, and also the longer the text, the better results. But 10,000 is the number to think of as the starting point for a WATA analysis. So it probably is possible with fewer texts if you have a tightly focused collection, but I haven't tried that yet. Okay, requirement 2, so this might be the trickier one. This is a comparison. You need some kind of comparison in order to make WATA work. So an example of a comparison, well, these are all examples of comparisons. So you might run a gender comparison, the male authored text against the female authored text. And if you have 100,000 plus texts, then you could also analyze male against female against non-binary. If you like. So we need more text for non-binary just because there are fewer non-binary people than male or female. So 0.1% on Twitter seem to be non-binary, for example. Another comparison you can make is time. Earlier posts against later posts to see if there have been changes in topic over time. Or popularity. So the more popular texts against the less popular texts. where popularity is measured in any way possible, so retweet count or like count, for example, for Twitter and YouTube. You might have some other way of measuring popularity. For example, TripAdvisor reviews, you might have review rating. Sentiment, positive against negative posts, for example. So what kind of things do people write about when they're posting positive message compared to negative messages? Country comparisons, you can compare country A to country B, or country A to all other countries that you have collected data for. So maybe 7 other countries, as in the example we've just seen. And you can also run topic comparisons, so topic 1 against topic 2, or topic 1 against all the other topics in your collection. So topic 1 versus topic 2. An example might be lockdown versus opening up. Tweets about lockdown against tweets about opening up. You might want to do that comparison to see what kind of things people discuss related to lockdown compared to opening up. And WATA would give you a set of themes for lockdown and a set of themes for opening up that were a characteristic of the differences between them. And the comparison can be against a range of other topics as well. So, for example, one study has looked at ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder tweets against 100 other medical conditions. So this is one topic against 100 other topics. So the 100 other medical conditions form a kind of a baseline, what people tweet about for medical conditions, to compare the ADHD tweet, so you can see what's distinctive about tweeting about ADHD compared to other conditions. So this is a comparison that's not really a comparison. It's kind of how is this topic distinctive from the average of other topics, essentially. And here are some examples of published papers that apply WATA. So I'll run through some of these examples just to illustrate the type of data used, the comparisons made, and mention some of the findings. So most of the comparisons, if you look, are gender comparisons, but not all of them. So the first one is gender differences in reactions to COVID-19. So the data for this was a set of tweets in English mentioning COVID-19, and the comparison was females against males. And one of the findings was that females tweet more about safety and males tweeted more about politics in their reactions to COVID-19. So there were other differences, but these are 2 examples of differences. Personal experiences of ADHD, the second topic. So these were tweets about my ADHD. So tweets containing the phrase my ADHD. So these would discuss something about the person's ADHD. And the comparison is these tweets against tweets about other disorders, 100 other disorders. And one of the findings was that my ADHD tweets often discussed the brain as if it was a separate entity to the owner of the brain. So treating the brain as something separate was one of the themes identified through WATA. Third example, the evolution of hashtag Black Lives Matter during COVID-19. So the data was a set of COVID-19 tweets about racism, mentioning racism in any way. And the comparison was the text of the tweets in over 4 different periods during 2020. And one of the findings was that the George Floyd murder led to tweets about systematic racism. So an increase in tweets about systematic racism, claiming that there was systematic racism or identifying systematic racism. These emerged from the George Floyd killing. Another example, self-presentation on Twitter, and the data for this is somewhat unusual. It's the profiles of UK Twitter users, so not their tweets, but their self-descriptions on Twitter. So if you've got a Twitter account, then you might have entered a short bio maybe with a few flags or icons in your bio. So these are the Twitter profiles, and the comparison for this was male against female against non-binary UK Twitter users. And an example of the findings from here was that non-binary profiles were more likely to mention games and sexuality than the male and female profiles. Next topic, autism on Twitter. And the data was a set of tweets about autism during COVID-19 from the US, so fairly specific. And the comparison was autism against all other conditions. And the purpose of this study was to find out whether people with autism reacted differently to COVID-19 than other tweeters. And essentially, the study found the answer, no, not really. So there weren't really distinctive reactions from people with autism to COVID-19. So there were worries at the time that COVID-19 might pose particular problems to autistic people, but we didn't find that evidenced on Twitter. So it might still happen, but we didn't find any evidence of it on Twitter through the WATA method. Next example, gender differences in museum interests, another gender one. So the data from this was a set of comments on YouTube museum videos. So these were videos from the 50 largest English language museums on YouTube, museum channels, and we took all the comments on their videos, compared the males against females, and one of the findings was that females were more explicitly positive about museum content. So if there was a comment on one of the videos saying something that was clearly explicitly positive about the content, then it was more likely to come from a female. I don't know why that is, but the males, in other contexts also, we've discovered males tend to be less explicit in their use of sentiment. And finally, discussions of bullying on YouTube. So the data here was a set of comments on YouTube influencer videos. I forget how many influencers we had, but we had a large set of British female YouTube influencers, and we compared the comments on their videos, and we looked at the comments about bullying versus comments on other topics that were addressed in these comments. And one of the findings was that one of the strategies used to address bullying on YouTube was generalization. So when commenters were offering support to victims of bullying, they would use some kind of generalization strategy. For example, they might say, people can be nasty. People can be nasty. It's not you. It's not your fault you were bullied. It's just a fact that people can be nasty. So that was like a generalization. People can be nasty, not you, the individual. There's something wrong with you that you got bullied, which is what bully victims often think. Okay, so we've seen lots of examples of WATA in practice using different types of data, tweets mainly, Twitter profiles, and comments on YouTube videos. Although there are other types of text that have been used in WATA studies, and the comparisons: gender, topic, ADHD versus other disorders, time periods, tweets in 4 different periods for the hashtag Black Lives Matter, and and other studies have looked at popularity comparisons, there's no example here. Okay, so an overview of WATA. So what are the stages? What are the stages of WATA? So the first stage is data collection. So Mojday either gathers the text from Twitter or YouTube or imports the text to analyze that you've already collected. And the next stage is word association detection, WAD. Word association detection. So Mojday will identify words that are more common in each subset of the text. So for example, if you've got tweets from various different sources, then you might tell Mojday, find words that are more common in the UK tweets than in the other countries' tweets. So that's word association detection. And then the next stage is word association contextualization. So Mojday's finished its job now, and now it's over to you. So you have to contextualize each word found by Mojday by identifying its typical meaning and context by reading a random sample of matching text. So we'll see examples, and we're going to practice that multiple times today because it's the trickiest part, I think. So the contextualization is identifying the typical meaning and context of each word. So it's a slow process, and I think it's a tricky process, but that's the first thing we're going to focus on in this course. And step 4 is the thematic analysis, and this is again a stage for you, not the computer. So this is to identify themes in the contextualized words. So you first contextualize the words, word association contextualization, and then you cluster the contextualized words into themes of related words. So essentially you're looking for a set of related words that form a theme. Okay, so we're starting at the top. This is an overview of WATA. So we start with a set of text, and then you tell Mojday how to split it. So typically it's set A against set B, so the male against the female, for example, and ignoring the others, the non-binary or the unknown gender tweets, for example. Or sometimes it's set A against the rest, so there's no set B, it's set A against the rest. But a typical one would be set A against set B, and then Mojday, the computer, produces a list of words in the word association detection stage, and these are words that occur more often in set A than set B, so more about that later. And then the human stage, there's you, the human. For each word you identify its context, so word 1, context 1, word 2, context 2. So you identify the context of each word by reading texts containing that word to see how it's typically used. And then the final stage is the thematic analysis stage, where you cluster the words into related topics or themes. So you reorder the words as appropriate, so that you've got all the related words, all the words that fit into a generalized concept into a theme or topic. Okay, so it starts with a computer stage, and then it ends up with a human stage. Contextualization and thematic analysis, the human stage. Okay, so Mojday finds the common words more common in set A than set B. You detect the meaning and context of these words, and then you cluster the words into themes. So there's data collection, first of all. So Mojday can collect tweets from keyword queries or sets of users. So you can either formulate a set of keyword queries, one or more keyword queries, to match the tweets that you want, or you can tell Mojday which users you want the tweets from, or you can collect YouTube comments from a specified set of videos or influencers or channels. And Mojday can import text that you already have if they're either in plain text format or tab delimited plain text format. So if you can get it into Excel, you could save it as a tab delimited plain text format, and then Mojday can read it in. And on the website, the Mojday website, it gives instructions for importing text. Okay, so word association detection. So how does that happen in Mojday? So step 2 is the detecting the words. So Mojday has two buttons that do this job, word association detection. So the mine associations button detects words that occur more often in a specified set of text than in the remaining texts. So what does that mean? Well, as a word associates with a subset of text, for example, the female text, female author text, if two things are true. Firstly, the word occurs in a higher percentage of text in the subset than the remainder. So it has to be more common in the subset that you're looking at than the remaining text, and the difference between the percentages is statistically significant. And this is something that Mojday will calculate for you. You don't have to do any statistical tests. Mojday does them all for you automatically. So some examples. So in one of my data sets, OMG is female associated, and that's because it occurs in 15% of the female tweets, but only 10% of the rest. So it's in a higher proportion of the female tweets than the non-female tweets. And Mojday reports that this difference is statistically significant. So the difference between the 15% and the 10% is statistically significant. So that would be a female association term for these two reasons. On the other hand, wobble is not late associated in my data because it's in 4% of late comments but 5% of earlier comments. So it's not in a higher percentage of late tweet. So this might be an early associated word, but it's definitely not a late associated word because it's more common in the earlier than the late tweets or comments. And excellent is not a popularity associated term in my data because although it's in 10% of popular tweets and 9% of the rest, so it does occur in a higher percentage of the popular tweets, Mojday reports that the difference is not statistically significant. So it might be in a higher proportion just by chance. So statistically, it's plausible that it occurred by chance. So out of these three, only OMG has been shown to associate with anything, and here it associates with female authored tweets. Okay, so that's the logic behind the word association detection, and we'll see more examples later on. And this is what it looks like in Mojday. So this is the mine associations for search and filters button. So you click that after you selected a filter. So here we're selecting a female filter, so a female user gender filter. And then we click this button after we've selected the filter. And then Mojday displays a table of up to the top 1,000 word associations. So a list of up to 1,000 words will be displayed on screen. And in this case, these are female associated words in comments on TED Talks on YouTube. So at the end, and actually not shown here, but Mojday puts 1, 2 or 3 stars at the end. And if you get stars at the end, it means that the association is statistically significant. So as shown here, these two words are statistically significant because I've just drawn the stars on, but the rest are not statistically significant, even though the percentage for the female tweets, which is the first column, is higher than the remaining, which is the no match column. For all of these words, the way I've drawn it now, only the first two are statistically significant. So we'll see more examples of that as well. Okay, so the statistical test used, if you're interested, you don't need to know the details if you don't want to, is a chi-squared test with a Benjamini-Hochberg correction, and it's used to test the statistical significance of the differences between the two percentages, the matching and the remaining tweets or comments, and it protects family-wise error rates. So if you've heard of those, they're protected by Mojday. So what that essentially means is that Mojday is unlikely to falsely tell you that there is an association when there actually isn't. So it's unlikely to make a statistical mistake in that sense. And the next stage, stage 3, is the word association contextualization. So just to recap, the WATA stage, the one we've just looked at, produce a list of terms that associate with the topic or filters that you've set, but it doesn't give their meaning or the context of the words. So contextualization is needed to detect the surface meaning of the term and its context. And a classic example here would be the word like. So if the word like is a WAD word, so it's important for your text, does like mean comparator, cats are like dogs except smaller? or is like a positive term. So I like cats. So comparator or positive sentiment. So different surface meanings of the word like. So you would find out which one is appropriate and matches your data set by reading a set of tweets containing like and seeing which way it's used, maybe used in a different way. And then secondly, it's not just the meaning, but it's also the context of the term. So for example, congressional has a fairly concrete meaning, but you might find that in your set of texts it's used to discuss only congressional district voting results. So the context of the term is much narrower in this setting than its meaning. So the context would be discussing congressional district voting results and not just congressional or congressional districts. Okay, so how did I find that out? Well, I've read lots of texts containing the word congressional and noticed that they always discussed congressional district voting results. So that was my human word association contextualization. So we'll see some examples of that again later. So you need both the meaning and the context to draw conclusions about a word association. So telling someone or reporting that like is used more by, let's say, males than females isn't very helpful without the extra context of what kind of like and what context is the word like used, and then you get more specific and more useful information. So word context, this is quite a hard one to do in practice, I think, but it's the most specific description that matches its most common use in the text that you read. So it doesn't have to match all uses, but it's the most common use, and you have to try and make the description, the context description, as specific as possible, but not so specific that it doesn't match most of the uses, but general enough so that it does match the most common uses of that word. Okay, so we'll see examples of that too, so that my confusing description is clearer, hopefully. So we're detecting the meaning and context with the quick whack method. So keyword in context is a standard, very old method from computational linguistics. I think it's about 30-40 years old. So it's a nice acronym, keyword in context, quick. And essentially it means you read a random sample of 10 or more text containing the term to identify its meaning and context from these texts. So it's what I've been talking about for the last 10 minutes. So you might want to read more than 10 texts if it's a particularly important study, or if the results are unclear from 10 texts. So start with 10 and then add more if it's more important or a more important word, or the results of the first 10 texts don't really give you a good idea. So identify the dominant meaning and context, and in some cases you might find there isn't a single dominant meaning or context, so you can discard the word essentially. So you would classify it as a multiple meanings word. So I often just have the code multiple for words that don't really have a single meaning or context. So we can use Mojday to help find the matching text. So to apply the keyword in context method, in Mojday you would set the corresponding filters, enter the term you just found as a query, and select the random sort order option in Mojday, and then Mojday will give you the quick text, the keyword in context text, so the text containing the word that you've chosen and with the appropriate filters, and it'll list the first I think 43 matching texts, and you read the first 10 to identify the context. So we'll practice that later on in the day, in the afternoon. So this is how it works. So let's say we've found the word inspiring. This is a word association detection term. So Mojday's told us that inspiring is one of the words we need to find out, and it's a female associated term. So we've found the word inspiring by asking Mojday to find words that are more common in female tweets. So we set a female filter. So we only want tweets from females because it's female associated words, and we want the tweets in a random order so that we don't get a biased subset of tweets that we're reading. And we've also entered the word inspiring as a search term. And now we click the search button, and we get a list of tweets containing the word inspiring. So if you these are actually video, these are actually, are they tweets? I can't remember if these are tweets or comments, sorry. But you can see the word inspiring occurs in each tweet. Inspiring. So you can see, if you read the first 10 of these, have we got 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if you read these 10 texts, then you might decide what the common meaning and context of the word is. So what do you think? What's the common meaning and context of the word inspiring here? And the texts aren't that easy to read because Mojday reports them in a slightly shortened version. So it eliminates plurals. And punctuation. So my take on this was that the context was inspiring talks or people. So the word inspiring is always about talks or people, and these are comments on TED Talks. So I think these are YouTube comments. They're not tweets, they're YouTube comments. So the word inspiring, I think it only has one meaning, but the context is inspiring talks or inspiring people. So 2 more examples. So you can apply quick in spreadsheets. So we'll be doing that this morning. So these are tweets from a set of, this is data from a set of tweets about COVID-19. And there are 4 tweets containing the word vulnerable. So vulnerable was detected by the word association detection. And then 5 containing the word coffee. And coffee was again detected by the word association detection. So our task here, our quick task, word association contextualization, is to identify the meaning and context of the word vulnerable and the meaning and context of the word coffee. So what do you think the meaning of the word, the meaning and context of the word vulnerable is from this, reading these just 4 texts? So I'll show you my answer. So vulnerable, so my context was people vulnerable to COVID-19. So it's not vulnerable to anything, but it's people that might be vulnerable to COVID-19. That's how I interpret it anyway. I expect you put something out, you thought something else. But I think vulnerable to COVID-19 makes sense. So there's not one single correct answer to any of these, so you might well think that you've got a better answer than mine, and that's fine. And then the second one for coffee. So 5 tweets containing the word coffee. Coffee, 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 coffee. So I think these mean face-to-face coffee meetings. So I think the context of all of them is not specifically drinking coffee, but it's actually meeting friends for coffee. So it's face-to-face coffee meetings, or meetups perhaps. So it's not really about the drink at all. I think it's more about the meeting friends face-to-face. Okay, so these are my 2 contextualizations of words found by Mojday word association detection and found from a spreadsheet. So in Mosh Day, we'll create these spreadsheets with the WATA words, detected word association words, and tweets or comments that contain the words. So another one. So the word love has been detected in a set of YouTube comments on TED Talks. So what do you think the context of the word love is from these comments? So I think the context is loving the video or the presenter. So loving the video or presenter. So loving, yeah, a bit similar to before really, I guess. So all these tweets are saying they like the presenter. So love her, presumably that's the presenter. Love her again. I love this man. So being positive about the presenter. Love this one. So I think that's more about the video. And this one, love to meet the speaker someday. So it's not quite saying that they love the presenter, but it's pretty close, I think. So you usually love to meet someone if you like them. So I think it's reasonable, even though it doesn't quite fit, to include this with love the video or presenter. Okay, so after you've completed the word association contextualization for however many terms you've discovered, so that might be all the significant terms, so every term with a star on, or you might have a fixed maximum number if you have a really big data set and there's too many statistically significant terms to analyze, then you might just have 400 terms or 100 terms. So at the end of this, you'll get a list of word association words, and for each word, the meaning or context of the word. So in this example, we have 4 word association detection terms, and these are the meanings and contexts identified from reading COVID-19 tweets containing the term, so the quick whack thing. So in this case, 2 of the words I think have unclear surface meaning. So calling, there's many uses of the word calling, many different surface meanings of the word calling, many different surface meanings of the word slur. So you can have a slur as in insult, or slur as in slur your words. But disparities and anti-Asian, I think these are fairly specific. There's only one real meaning for these. But the contexts are all much more specific than the surface meaning of the word as well. So slur here means racial slur, and more specifically, someone saying that calling COVID-19 a Chinese virus is a racial slur. So that's a very specific context for this word. Okay, so here the meaning and context. 2 meanings clear already, 2 you need to work out the meaning, and all of them have contexts that are much narrower than the meaning. So if you have only a few significant terms, so less than 15 for example, then you don't need a thematic analysis, and you can probably just report the word association context, just list the context that you found. So then the method is called word association analysis, so it's a kind of smaller version of WATA. So if you have more than 15, then thematic analysis needs to be applied to cluster the terms into themes. So cluster the words into themes based on the context that you've just found out. And this is the thematic analysis stage. And as I mentioned before, it's a variant of the social science research method called thematic analysis. And more specifically, it's a variant of reflexive thematic analysis, as popularized by Braun and Clark. So only apply it after the WAC stage, and apply it to the context of the words, not the words themselves. And for the thematic analysis, tag each term with a single candidate theme generalizing its context. So you start off by reading all the context, which you have to do in order to complete the wax stage, and then give each term a theme, a word or a description that generalizes its context. So that means don't think of just that specific narrow context of the word. So the contextualization narrows down the possible meanings of a word by giving its context. And in thematic analysis, you kind of go the other way. You try to generalize out again, but try to think of a theme that the context fits within and relevant to your research goals, if possible. And look for generalizing themes that can encompass multiple terms. So don't look for any way of generalizing the word, but look for ways in which you can generalize the word so that other words can also fit in with the same basic theme. So you're kind of clustering the words together into related themes, themes combining words with related meanings. So once you've done that, then sort the terms by theme. So in a spreadsheet you can sort by theme if you put the themes in a column of the spreadsheet, and then look for ways in which you can merge similar themes and check that all the terms properly fit each theme. So this is a kind of a housekeeping stage afterwards. So first you find the themes, and then you revisit all your themes by putting all the words fitting within the theme together and just checking that the words really do fit with the themes and they also don't fit with other themes. So there's a chance to compare the themes with each other and compare individual words with the theme within each theme to all the other themes, so that especially if you've got a large set of themes or a large set of words, then your set of themes is coherent and it does make sense in the two ways that the words that you've assigned to the theme do fit within it and they don't fit within other themes. So this is similar to the thematic analysis stage of constant comparison, comparing within and between themes. And if you adjust a theme, then you need to check all the terms within that theme afterwards to make sure that they still do fit in with that theme. So here's an example. So we've seen these terms and their meanings and context before. So I think you can group these 4 terms into 2 themes. So I'd like you to have a look at these 4 terms and decide which 2 themes you would pick to group these terms together into. Okay, so if you want to spend a bit of time on this, pause the video and then restart when you're ready. So the 2 themes I've identified are the top term I think is about racial or ethnic disparities in COVID deaths, because that's what the tweet says, and the other 3 I think are about anti-Asian racism in the context of COVID-19, perhaps. So you might say anti-Asian racism in the context of COVID-19. So I think that general description fits the bottom 3 terms. So I would say there are 2 themes in here, one with 1 term and one with 3 terms. So I'd be interested if you've got anything different than that. I think this is a relatively straightforward example. When you get to your own data set, and you'll find it much more difficult to identify the themes, I think. So I've given you a small, relatively simple example, I think. Okay, so once you've finished your WATA and you've got a set of themes based on the context of the words detected by Mojde, then how can you report the results? So if there are many themes, you might want to use a table. So put a table into your thesis or paper. Or you might have a bullet point list, which would have the name of the theme, perhaps an anonymized quote to illustrate the theme. That's commonly used in thematic analysis. And then an explanation of the theme and perhaps even a list of words that fall within the theme. So you'd have a whole set of bullet points, one for each theme. So this is the method I think I prefer, because it gives you a bit more space to talk about each theme. So this is a section from a paper about bullying, and these are the themes. So the blue text, these are the anonymized quotes, and after it is a description of the theme. So the first theme is bullying, and the anonymized quote is the bullying was horrible, and there's a list of all the terms that fitted in within the theme of bullying. So bullying, bully, bullies, bullied. So some obvious ones and some less obvious ones, like them, get, by, still, but they were all tagged with the theme bullying after the word association, contextualization and thematic analysis stages. Okay, next theme was school. The anonymized quote, it happened at school, and the context is the description of the theme is that school was the location of the bullying. And I was untacked online, so cyberbullying is the third theme, and this encompasses 4 words that all describe cyberbullying. Okay, so there were other themes than those, but these are the three of the thematic analysis themes, and as you can see, they're generated from words that relate to the theme. So more specifically, when I looked at the context of cyberbullying, cyberbully and cyberbullied, I thought that the common theme for the context was being bullied online. So cyberbullying. So in this case, it's easy, it's even one of the words. And same for that one, school, it's even one of the words from the theme. And also, I guess this one is also, the theme name is also one of the words, bullying. But if someone else had analysed this, they might have got a different theme. There wouldn't necessarily be wrong. So maybe they would have split this bullying theme into 2, one focusing on the victim, for example. But when I looked at it, I thought they all fitted into just a general bullying theme. Okay, so returning to the picture showing word association thematic analysis. So this picture describes a full study which compared male to female vaccine tweets. So here we have 2 sides of the picture instead of one. So here the words are identified from Mojday from the female tweets compared to the male tweets about vaccine, and then the human identified the words in the context of the words and then split them into topics or themes. And then the same was done for the male tweets. So the Mojday found words that were more common in the male than the female tweets, and then the human found their contexts and then split them into themes. Okay, so if you're doing one subset against another, you have to do 2 contextualization, 2 thematic analysis stages, one for each subset, the male and the female in this case. Okay, so to summarize, word association thematic analysis is a method to identify themes in sets of text. It's a systematic method to identify themes in sets of text. So if you have used other methods which identify themes in sets of text, like thematic analysis, one of the versions of thematic analysis, or content analysis perhaps, then this method differs from those by focusing on the differences and finding more fine-grained differences than you can find with content analysis or thematic analysis, as we'll see later on. So you need lots of text, an idea for a comparison, and we saw lots of different ones like gender, time, popularity, and you need Mojday for the terms, and WATA starts with the word association detection, so finding words that associate with a topic or filter, such as gender, time, popularity, sentiment. So Mojde does that. And then there's the contextualization stage, where you identify the meaning and context of the words found by Mojde. And then the thematic analysis stage, where you cluster the contextualized words into themes that generalize the contexts. Okay, so the next stage we'll use to practice WATA with pre-prepared spreadsheets containing significant terms and text matching them. Okay, so I hope that made sense.